Helluva Boss has been one of my favorite shows for a long time, and I know Stryker has a mixed reputation, so I wanted to give him some love. This is just my opinion though. If you feel starkly in the opposite direction, you might have more fun watching one or both of these videos. I mean this genuinely, by the way. I don't see any reason why I shouldn't support other channels, even if we are of opposing opinions. Otherwise, if you decide to stick around, I hope you enjoy. So, I like the cowboy snake. Let's get into why. Stryker's debut in the Harvest Moon Festival was one I think just about everyone loved. He was cool, calm, strong, fierce, and for lack of a better term, manly. He was also voiced by Norman Reedus, and his vocal performance added this air of suave nonchalance to him that I thought worked really well. The introduction to his character lent an air of mystery to him, but through his demeanor it was clear he was likely to be a villain, if not an antagonist, for the characters to go up against. At first glance, it seems like he is simply Moxie's opposite. Tough, strong, liked by others, including Millie's family, oof. And competent in all the ways of physicality and personality that Moxie struggles to maintain due to his small stature, different skill set, and sensitive nature. Stryker even knows how to sing and play the guitar, and makes up a song on the fly just to boast about how great he is and tell Moxie to screw off. At its base level, Stryker started out as opposition to Moxie, with Moxie feeling like he had to overcome him. He joins the Pain Games and gets absolutely swamped, with Blitz and Stryker taking the lead and both tying for first place. In the end, Moxie learns his lesson that it doesn't matter how physically strong or manly he is when he has Millie in his corner, that his skill set is more with guns and ranged weaponry, and he instead wins over Millie's parents with his emotional intelligence and concern for his wife. When her parents chew her out for nearly getting killed by the assassin they unknowingly hired under their roof. Stryker proves a strong juxtaposition to Moxie right off the bat though, constantly goading him and egging him on, taking pleasure in watching Moxie squirm and try his damnedest in something he knows he'll fail at.
Simple. Watch me.
Nah, with these, bullets can't pierce the shell. You gotta get the knife underneath and pry yourself an opening.
Oh, right. My clavicle!
Don't worry, little one. You never stood a chance.
He contrasts Moxie, Millie, and all of IMP by being alone, romantically, platonically, and on the job. He has no coworkers, no friends, but he's just as skilled, fierce, and talented as the entirety of IMP. A force to be reckoned with, a one-man army. His initially friendly charms towards Blitz immediately win him over, complimenting him as an imp running his own business. A rarity in Hell, as it's something multiple characters comment on, and for some reason a lot of villains like buttering Blitz up with.
Oh, so you're the bold imp that started his own killing biz.
Yeah, well, when you're good at something, you should probably capitalize.
Not many imps start businesses on their own. That's pretty impressive, sir.
Oh. Yeah, it is. I guess it is, isn't it?
I've heard a lot of good things about you and your work.
Really? Me?
No! From all over. Looks like you're building a bit of a name for yourself here, kid.
Really? Huh. Well, I guess it's about time folks recognized my talent.
I like your attitude.
That, both of their propensities for fighting and brawling, plus the tough and tumble nature of the Pain Games immediately has Blitz think Stryker would make a good fit for IMP. This was a very interesting idea to introduce, and I was intrigued by the idea as Helluva Boss was still finding its footing as a show and the themes they would go with. It's actually this episode that I feel like was the first one that shifted Helluva Boss into the direction the rest of the show became. Comedic beginnings but careful characterization, so that even the jokes showed the true character of those who's making the jokes or affected by them, with a shift towards darker or more serious storytelling by the end. The idea of Stryker joining the team hits Moxie and cuts deep, feeling like he'd be replaced by another powerhouse as skilled as Millie and Blitz are. But for Stryker, he doesn't see it that way. He doesn't care about who he works with. When he attacks Moxie and Millie and walks them away, he says,
I'd kill y'all, but I feel like there's more leverage with your rodeo clown of a boss if I don't.
Implying he doesn't actually respect Blitz at all, despite being willing to take him up on his offer. Him fighting against Moxie and Millie was also the first time they are shown to be in real danger, Stryker nearly strangling Moxie to death and breaking Millie's arm in half. It cements him as a true threat against them. And when it comes to Stryker's conversation with Blitz, I still find myself wondering if he meant any of what he told Blitz about wanting to work together. That they could take down the overlords and the Goetia if they worked together and played their hands smarter, to aim ever higher than Blitz himself was ever planning or thinking he could achieve. He only found Blitz more of worth in his eyes, only worthy of respect despite his racist and supremacist worldviews because of Blitz's tenacity and cunning when it came to using Stolas for the grimoire. He assumed it was only for that, and skills in combat as a hit for hire. I feel like he meant his words on that level, but didn't care for Blitz's personality and who he truly was as a person. It's for this reason, this conversation, that I think he truly shifted from being Moxie's antagonist to face to being Blitz's narrative foil. A self-made imp just like him, an assassin, skilled, dangerous, and handsome, a cowboy. He even has a horse. He's everything Blitz could ever hope to be. He has points about the upper class and the system as a whole looking down on them for their effort and skill. He doesn't care about who Stolas is, and sees Stolas treats Blitz only as a plaything at that point in the story. He can't fathom the concept of developing feelings for one of the upper crust, something Blitz was first implied to be developing within this episode. Blitz is tempted by the idea to kill Stolas and be free of the metaphorical chains shown physically in Blitz's hallucination in Truth Seekers. To truly be free and run his business how he wants. And is left up in the air if a part of Blitz didn't want to kill Stolas because of his developing feelings, or because he simply didn't want to lose his easiest mode of convenience to access the living world, dropping his interest entirely only once Moxie shows up. Which I still find interesting that I don't think he ever talked with Moxie or the rest of the crew about this moment, perhaps feeling guilty or realizing later what the weight and danger of killing Stolas might mean for them in the long run. Also, I gotta say, the sexual tension was so there during this entire scene. Originally, Stryker was meant to be just as sex-interested and horny as everyone else in the cast, but they decided in Season 2 it'd be more interesting and funny if he hated that everyone acted that way instead. And I definitely agree, I love the jokes that came from it, but it was a massive blow to the Blitz and Stryker ship that spawned from this episode. I can't lie, I was one of them. But I'm more interested in seeing where his character goes canonically. LMAO's video covered some of the original scenes that were cut from the episode.
Episode 5 Harvest Moon Festival that were cut. In one scene, after Stryker performs his song, Wally Wackford is seen sweating and remarks that the song, quote, gave him the vapors. So basically, Wally Wackford originally had a crush on Stryker. Personally, I think this ship is quite cute and I wish it was kept in. Elsewhere in that episode, Stryker was supposed to wink at Millie, and he also made a lewd motion to Blitz when first meeting him. These concepts were scrapped, and Stryker was instead changed to actually dislike these jokes.
And even without it, you can still feel the flirtatious vibes, presented with an air of danger, sort of like a femme fatale when it comes to Stryker's pitch to Blitz. He shows his lack of regard for the lives of others, willing to try and force Blitz's hand to shoot Moxie, writing him off as
A weak lip.
You gonna finish that fucking sentence, partner?
Vermin.
Stryker is willing to take only who he deems as strong along with him, but Blitz says something much more important he wouldn't be able to be without: friendship and family. Stryker is neither of these things. And when we get to his next appearance in Western Energy, it's stated he lost everything. As of Season 2, it's unclear what that is, but family, friends, a home, or even all of the above could be possible when it comes to his disdain for the Goetia. It's here that Stryker's character takes a shift from the Harvest Moon Festival. While still a threatening force in his own right and highly skilled, the layers of his arrogant facade are peeled back just a little bit more to show Stryker's irritations. He's also voiced by Edward Bosco going forward, who I think lends a different but still considerably cool quality to his voice, being able to express a much more bitter, angry, and snarly nature than he had in his first appearance, while still having moments of cool confidence. Stryker's shift in character, I know, put a lot of people off from him. He got more upset about things, more visibly angry, and showed more vulnerability and was distracted from his goals when it came to Moxie making being strangled to death into a kinky joke. It's certainly a different vibe, but for whatever reason, personally I was okay with it, and didn't think negatively of it. I'm aware though that the vast gap between Harvest Moon Festival and Western Energy definitely soured people's opinions to dive into a character that was unexpected from Stryker. And when it comes to that statue, I think it's just a regular Helluva Boss sex joke. Probably the most they would push Stryker's character towards. But it's also a great portrayal of ego for him, expanded on from not only being full of himself in the front of a crowd of adoring strangers, but also being full of himself to the point that it's something that he keeps for himself in the privacy of his own home, a literal cave, a cave full of Western memorabilia and theming. Did I mention that Stryker is also an outlaw, perfect for the cowboy aesthetic and the Western vibes of the Wrath Ring? But it's also another notable point that separates him from the IMP cast. He lives entirely alone. Blitz has his daughter, Luna, and Moxie and Millie have each other. Blitz runs IMP, not legally, but he also hasn't been caught using the grimoire, yet. Instead, he has a profitable business in the Pride Ring, right in the middle of the bustling Imp City, and has a constant influx of new clients that only grow more and more each episode. Blitz is thriving, relatively speaking, compared to Stryker. The cool confidence of a badass assassin loses its shimmer and shine somewhat once his personal life is peered into, and realizing he's destitute when it comes to true connections and relationships with anyone around him. He truly is Blitz's opposite in every way, and I find him all the more intriguing for it. And then it comes to Stryker, Stolas, and his relationship to the Goetia. A truly interesting paradox on his part to be willing to work for what he despises the most, simply for money and for his own personal vendetta, to get the chance to kill someone who he personally doesn't know, but is certain has wronged him just as much as any of the other upper-crust elite. And seeing the way Stolas has treated imps both subtly and unsubtly.
Yes, Stella!
Dad?
Blitzy, my grimoire is actually incredibly important, and it isn't supposed to be lent out to itty-bitty imps like yourself.
Here to usher in this here pain game.
How kind, Blackfoot. Greetings, tiny Wrath-Ring imps. I hereby welcome you all to another year of celebrating the spoils of your labor that continue to feed the citizens of Hell. I'm happy to kick off the start of these games that will challenge the toughest imps to show their skill and dominance. Good luck to you all! Especially that sexy little one there. Yoo-hoo, Blitzy.
Oh, fuck me.
Yeah, I don't think Stryker is entirely wrong about Stolas. Probably doesn't warrant killing him over it, though. But it's clear, and only becomes more clear as it goes on, that Stryker sees class and race before he sees individuality. He sees ideas, systems, power, and strength before he'll ever look at someone as an individual, or the nuances of the situation they're in, or the feelings one might have for one of the upper class that he so despises. So far, he's not a man to be reasoned with, and the more the show goes on, his sense of reason and sanity seem to slip further and further. His ego is fragile when it comes down to it. He puts on a mask just like Blitz does, only instead of a clown persona or a toxic cycle of testing people's limits until they push him away, Stryker wants a desperate sense of control, power, security, and validation. Many of these things align with Blitz's desires as well, but with no one to fall back on, when push comes to shove, all Stryker has to do is shove. He wants to frighten Stolas, to break him, to threaten him. Each time he makes an attempt and Stolas backtalks him, he ups his threats and violence more and more to try and regain the power he thought he had in the situation. He has a bone to pick with the prince he gets to have free reign with, but instead he's being mocked and laughed at, so anger and retaliation are how he lashes out. And when that doesn't work, he gives up for a time and comes back later, slowly wearing Stolas down with injuries and threats, enjoying that a comment about his daughter is what gets under Stolas' skin. His power and control is regained the more uncertain and weak Stolas' fight becomes, so that smug arrogance of his comes back. And once it's there and he's shattered Stolas' hope of rescue, it's only then that he's willing to finally end his life. Only to be interrupted by Stella's call to leave him alive, something he isn't happy about in the slightest, but nonetheless agrees to. Stryker is not a perfect hitman, though. He's not a perfect obedient imp that the Goetia are used to serving them, so he decides he'd take his own trophy as retribution and cut out Stolas' eye. In some ways, it's a level of savage revenge that mirrors Blitz's threat to the racist or speciest, I'll just say racist for ease, Mom and her kid in that episode, the pair being two sides of the same coin, both willing to harm others who've offended them in ways that hurt them personally. Then Moxie and Millie show up. This shot of Moxie looking so badass, honestly. It's crazy how they made the van tumbling down not an accident, but a perfect, cool cinematic shot for Moxie to line up his shot with his rifle. And Stryker's reflexes and quick thinking are on point, honestly. He wasn't expecting anyone at all to come to Stolas' rescue. To start moving out of harm's way so fast is crazy preparedness and instinct, while just as quickly retaliating. There are little words exchanged for most of the fight, but dang, it's one of my favorites in the series. M certainly do make a lethal combo together, and the choreography is amazing, and Stryker is an absolute beast with the rope, and I'm not sure I've seen a character cause so much damage with one before. Though I gotta say, I would have much preferred the fight happened with that first rock song that came on the radio. That beat was good, and I found myself a little disappointed when they switched to the pop electronic one for comedic effect that we've seen a dozen times in other shows. I get that it was to pair more with Blitz's shenanigans trying to give Luna her shot at the vet, but Stryker versus Eminem in a full fight at their best is one of the coolest moments due to their prior history and everyone's skill, and they went for funny music for most of it. Stryker proves his competence once again as he practically beat Moxie and Millie in a 2v1, managing to hurl a rock onto Moxie's back and shatter it, and throw Millie's own axe back at her. The moment from Stryker is one of my favorites. Honestly, it's like a mix of damn, I'm good, and ooh, so close. And I really enjoy that characterization of it. Again, it's a vibe and context I think I've rarely seen before. It's an interesting reaction to have. Then he goes to strangle Moxie, taking visceral pleasure in the act until Moxie's comment throws him off, enough so that he completely lets go of him and backs off in disgust and surprise, honestly, I think, completely turned off. I think Stryker is legitimately a sadist, but in the psychotic way of a serial killer who enjoys harming and killing others. So anyone deriving pleasure from what should be painful and terrifying just immediately shuts him down and ruins any sense of enjoyment he has. It's hard to say how much he contrasts with Blitz on this point and IMP as a whole. Though rare, Moxie is just as demonic as the others at times, occasionally excited to cause harm to the humans they're out to kill. Millie can be absolutely rabid sometimes, she revels in bloodshed, and Blitz also derives a lot of enjoyment from killing their targets. Stryker's sadism is framed as bad, partially by nature of being IMP's antagonist who tries killing them multiple times, which is fine, honestly, as the show still has bad people as its protagonists, but the real reason to root for them is the humanity they have outside of their demonic traits. That and Helluva Boss and Hazbin Hotel aren't supposed to be a one-to-one morality lesson on all matters. It's more about themes of growth and change, while also being a comedic adult show that loves having its bloodbaths and bombastic fight scenes. Moxie and Millie defeat Stryker, who barely manages to escape compared to the time prior. Then comes his next appearance in Oops, for a fun, different villain team-up with Crimson of all people, as he lists off just how little he cares about anyone he kills.
I ain't afraid to go after anyone. Women, kids, and cute little faced puppy-looking things. Don't matter.
All people and living creatures that are considered too cruel and immoral to harm. Blitz doesn't get a pass on that first one. The second one is debatable in regards to the pilot, which is said to not be canon, but there are various references to it throughout the show.
Is this about the orphans? Because they were already sick to begin with.
Silence!
And Western Energy shows him ready to kill the Karen mother and her child, or at least have no qualms about threatening them. I'm not sure Blitz or IMP would ever delve into the realm of harming animals or puppies, especially when Blitz literally had a complete mental break from reality when it came to giving the dog back on set to the actor family in Seeing Stars, because he was reminded of Luna and didn't want to give her up. So aside from that last one potentially being a line Blitz and co won't cross, Stryker's dialogue certainly seems to be another bit of framing to show how comedically immoral he is when it comes to his job. He also mentions having a royal on the ropes just last week, that being Stolas, and it makes me wonder just how much Stryker has to put himself out there to get new work, and how much he gets paid for a job, especially with him being an outlaw in Wrath. IMP is shown to be financially stable and thriving more and more as the show goes on, but I'm not sure where Stryker stands when it comes to means of living. I guess he's alright though. I feel like they'd make a plot point if he was struggling to make ends meet and constantly being stalked by IMP, so he's probably alright otherwise. Then we have one of my favorite jokes of the episode.
I'll tell you what. If you can deliver something of value, I'll consider it.
One moment.
Hired.
Fast forwarding a bit, he takes a back seat until it comes time for Blitz and Fizz to bicker with each other in their cage, something that pisses Stryker off for them to be.
Bicker like a couple of teen skanks.
And honestly, I kind of have to agree. It's pretty funny. Stryker's supremacist views and hatred towards royalty comes up once more, once again referring to Stolas and Asmodeus. Why do they say it that way? It's Asmodeus, damn it. And Blue Bloods, finding Blitz more tolerable for seemingly only using Stolas and having the apparent wherewithal not to trust that a member of the upper class could actually care about him. Fizzaroli, the most down-to-earth one between the three of them, who isn't full of external hatred for what the upper class represent, or internal hatred like Blitz has, is the only one to voice the idea that no one is superior to anyone.
Neither of you filthbags know what you're even talking about. If you think you're superior to anyone, then you are no better than any royal.
Don't you dare finish that sentence, clown.
Hey!
His hatred towards royalty is loud and clear and far surpasses anyone else we've seen in the show, including Blitz, who stops himself from seeing the good in others and himself, and allowing himself to be vulnerable with them. I think the episode is a really good one for Stryker though, as it shows to us, the audience, that he isn't solely a hypocrite that works for the Goetia while simultaneously despising them, he's willing to work for other imps too. And despite how angry he gets, just like in Western Energy, however reluctant, he still follows orders given to him by whoever he's working for. He gets the comedic runaround with Crimson and the rest of the goons in what I think is a highly underrated song, Look at This. Fizz shaking him roughly and then squirting him in the face is a great little moment though, because it's probably about as violent as Fizz is willing to get with someone, and is a small way of getting back at Stryker. When working together with Blitz, he was more so maneuvering the both of them so Blitz could make his shots, rather than killing anyone personally. And even then, I appreciate that they have Stryker be the one that's the most on point and focused during the distraction. He tries repeatedly to get back on track, but Fizz forces his attention back to him. He's the first person to fire a shot at Blitz though, which makes sense when he's already noted that he doesn't want to have to deal with him anymore.
You've been a pain in my ass long enough, Blitz.
Unfortunately, things don't go as planned. The tension ratchets up again though when Stryker grabs hold of Fizz and takes him hostage. It's another moment played more seriously than not, similar to the scene with the cage, and Stryker absolutely losing his marbles is something I'm a huge fan of, and seeing how he develops later down the line. He keeps having his jobs ruined by Blitz both directly and indirectly, and presumably might lose credibility as an assassin because of it, twice being against Stolas, which he has a strong personal contempt for. Losing his cool demeanor from his first appearance makes perfect sense when it's more of a facade constructed and built on insane performance standards.
Every time I try, I push it and succeed. Me, I'm totally the best.
That means he has to consistently be the best with no room for error or failure. The implication being that before meeting Blitz in Harvest Moon Festival, Stryker was exactly that, unchallenged in his skill and unable to be beaten when it came to whoever his targets were. And he had nothing else to stand on, no people to rely on, only his job and reputation, and
reputation is everything.
So having that repeatedly cut into out of nowhere, it challenges Stryker's view of the world and his perception of himself as being better than everyone else, growing more unhinged and vicious because all he has is what other people view him as, what he views himself as, and he keeps getting beat, seemingly, like a chump, despite his efforts. So in a moment of blind rage and disgust at Fizz for his relationship with Ozzy, he threatens his life. There's also the classic,
Okay, is it bad that I'm getting hard?
Shut the fuck up! Why is it always a sex thing?
And aside from being a hilarious line, it also shows the subtle way Stryker has shifted his behavior since Western Energy. Instead of recoiling and letting go of who he wants to kill in disgust, He gets angry and snaps, but keeps his grip around Fizz and his gun aimed at his head. Honestly, it feels like the next time someone makes a sexual comment around him, he's just going to immediately blow their brains out. But it still ended up being enough to distract Stryker, long enough for Blitz to do the insane move of blowing them up to get Fizz free. Stryker is the only one burned and injured in the incident, writhing on the ground in agony before skittering away in desperation. Each time he's beaten, it's more severe than the last, which cannot be good for his mental state if he was already starting to lose his mind in this episode. It takes a number of episodes before his next official appearance, but I wanted to make a brief detour to...
You speak just like that vile Stryker friend of yours.
In the disastrous aftermath of their pseudo-breakup, Stolas says that line, something that gets Blitz to stutter and stammer on, because a part of him realizes it's true. Stolas is able to make the connection between them, as he's seen both of their contempt for the Goetia firsthand. Stolas is still blind to the way he's belittled and looked down on Blitz in earlier episodes, but his attempts to start a real relationship with Blitz and set things right between them are something that Blitz stomped all over during this conversation, by claiming that Stolas just got a thrill from
getting plowed by people you look down on.
He's at his worst here, so his words very much mirror Stryker's disdain. He refuses to pull back and have a genuine conversation until later, when the damage is already done. This is where the characters differ the most. Stryker sees no good and no love even remotely possible from a Goetia or Sin to an imp or otherwise. He views it as weakness rather than genuine connection through and despite class differences. He's desperate to not be hypocritical to the point where he only has enemies instead of friends, willing and able to kill anyone and everyone, even someone he partially saw as his equal. He was willing to use Moxie and Millie as bait and leverage against Blitz if he didn't get him on his side prior, the closest thing to a potential friend Stryker could have had in the series so far. Blitz is eventually able to recognize his flaws and willing to move past them and open up to others, to realize he isn't a burden on everyone who ruins everything. Stryker, though, is still willing to work with the Goetia, to take down anyone he hates for a payday. Something Blitz isn't willing to do after seeing the good in a family wanting to be together despite their client's wishes. Which brings us to... something I find interesting, and a sense of realism, is Stryker's final appearance in Season 2 is that he isn't clawing at the walls going nuts like he was in Oops. He's back to the same composure and smug confidence he's had in episodes prior, with a new outfit to boot. That I wouldn't have noticed if it weren't for Sarcastic Chorus's final review. He's still working with Stella and Andrealphus, and while it is to testify for immunity, and I'm uncertain if they paid him off for this job as well, it's more than clear he's doing this out of vengeance against Blitz and IMP, as it's the trial that could have ended everything and nearly resulted in Blitz getting his head chopped off. He'd be taking out his biggest competition, the people he's grown to hate the most aside from royalty, so him being confident is a good place to take him back to mentally, as he thinks he'll get back to how things used to be. I can only imagine after the trial he had an absolute freak out like Stolas did at how things ended up going, though maybe a part of him is glad Stolas was stripped of his rank and powers. And Stryker blatantly calling out for his
line, the grimoire. Yeah, that.
In the middle of the courtroom just goes to further prove how little anyone cared about the facts of the case while there. They didn't care about the testimony or the circumstances, save for Visago. Blitz was written off for dead before he even set foot into that courtroom. It was always going to be a losing battle if Stolas hadn't intervened, so the lack of regard both Stryker and Andrealphus had to make sure Stryker had the word memorized, but still managed to go unquestioned, shows just how rigged the trial was from the start, and how much power a Goetia like Andrealphus has to baselessly sling accusations around without any proof. The detail with Stryker being unable to remember the word grimoire, and having struggled and failed to write it down and sound it out on his hands numerous times, is another nod to the class differences between him and the Goetia. Grimoire isn't an everyday common word. Even in real life, I can very easily imagine people would struggle to spell it if they hadn't seen it before. People can't even spell your and your right, or there, and there, or definitely and defiantly. Blitz also has no idea what Stolas was saying the first time it was mentioned back in episode 1.
Regarding my grimoire.
What did you just call me?
My book, Blitzy.
And back in Harvest Moon Festival, Stryker thought freelance work was work done for free. Even Millie had to correct him, as he hasn't had the same experiences and opportunities that Blitz and his company have had. Illiteracy and a lower level of education seems to be prominent amongst imps, which often leads them to laboring jobs along with hellhounds as mercenaries, assassins, bodyguards, farmers, servants, waiters, clowns, and other manual, often blue-collar jobs, both for menial labor and entertainment or service. Blitz is an outlier amongst his people and others around his class, aside from being seemingly the only demon assassins working on Earth, as he gets to choose who he works for, whereas Stryker has to pitch and sell himself to others in the hopes that they'll let him work for them.
What?
We have a client.
Tell them to fuck off!
Don't! I'll be right there.
Okay, so let me get this straight. You don't want us going to Earth at all for this job.
Correct.
You want us killing someone in hell, because I gotta tell you, that ain't exactly our business no more.
I'll tell you all about it when you're here.
He doesn't deserve to live that heinous lifestyle and poison my daughters with it.
Aha. Look, I don't think this is a job we want to take on.
Really?
Can you believe this trash? Didn't make me wet at all.
Wow, I feel lighter.
I think that's about everything I can say about this cowboy snake, and trust me, this was way longer than I ever thought this would end up being. I like Helluva Boss a lot, and I know a lot of people didn't like the direction Stryker went in, and I haven't seen a video giving a more positive rundown of his character ever since his debut, so I wanted to give my own thoughts on the toxic bastard. I very much look forward to seeing what they do with him in the future. Hope you all enjoyed, and my video suggestions are at the end. Oh, thank God it's over, fuck.